measures, filling in some of the greater craters so that we can get out the food that is still there before it goes bad. And finally, with respect to food security, and speaking from Western Jamaica and St. James in particular, the markets are already reflecting the loss of the food we would have expected to have on the shelves at this time. Are there any interim measures that the ministry is contemplating to ensure we have meals at Christmas, and that I know it takes 6 to 9 months for the bananas to come back and the plantains to come back, but what interim measure so that we are not starving are you contemplating so we have food for Christmas?
All right, I'm going to suggest that rather than go a second round of questions after we get answers for these, that we move on to another ministry. We have 4 ministries here. We've used an hour already. And I really don't want us to go a second round while we have important other ministries to get to. So, no, the second round I'm talking about. Those who haven't asked a question yet, I will still have. But I'm throwing it to the ministry to respond to those questions now. No, but Mr. Williams appears to have I don't know how much farmers he has in his area, but he has a second round, so you can go with him. PS, just turn on your mic for me. PS, just turn on your mic. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to try to be very quick in dealing with this. Regarding seeds. The previous situation was $80 million.
That's why I wanted to ask the question, because it was added to.
That was totally.
You're saying you just want to tag it on to.
Yes, because a quick question that it would be incorporated in the answer 2 areas. One, what was happening in respect of the drone mapping of crops that we had, farm roads that we have, being able to quickly assess exactly what is the extent of the damage. To the question, and then read the seeds. Even though we spoke about seeds, what about seedlings in particular? If RADA has been able to identify existing seedlings, and why that particular question, seedlings would help us to recover faster for the cash crops that we would need for Christmas. Than seeds at this moment. So if they could give us an idea the extent of seedlings that survive, Melissa, and how fast we would be able to get those distributed so we can get moving for Christmas.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Seeds and seedlings. So I did indicate $80 million for the first with burial, and that was all expended. This $40 million we are talking about is new money that came out of production incentive in preparing for the season. Now, when I speak to seeds, the technical term really is planting material, because it is not seeds alone that we use. Yes, and so. When it comes on to planting material now that is available, I indicated earlier that all planting material that we have will be made available. But in addition to that, we have sequestered all nursery operators across the country, not only to come on board in rapidly producing seedlings, but also to recover from them what they have that can be a part of the distribution in order to get production back up and running. So $1.5 million overall, 1.5 million seedlings targeting 120 hectares, some 300 acres. And for vegetable seed distribution, we have already covered approximately, in terms of distribution, 270 hectares. So borders in and of itself We have got material out of our borders facility that can cover 160, what is supposed to be acres or hectares? Hectares. And for sweet potato, for example, we have a program actively going on for the production of sweet potato slips, clean sweet potato slips that we are distributing to farmer. And immediately we have some 5,000 to cover 11.6 acres available.
I think Mr. Phillips' question
Right, so
was not just that you had them. He wanted to know, as MP, could he be aware of what is happening specifically in his constituency?
I'm going to get to that. One of the things that he mentioned is Irish, Manchester, the Irish belt. The $120 million that we have put to Irish seed, and this had nothing to do with the hurricane. The seeds are here, and you know where they are. I'm inviting you to put your documentation in, as you know you would, and the members of parliament and the local representatives are critical in helping us to it. That's the appeal I was making, Chairman, at the close of my previous presentation, that we are open for that and it's free for that. And we want to plug all situations that are not consistent with the framework in which we expect to operate. Quickly, in terms of the assessment, the question was asked about the overall assessment and how we went about it, given the limitation with not only extension officers, but accessing the areas. You know, we have come a long way with the technology. We have drones in the ministry and handing in each agencies. And we too had started the satellite linking for imagery and that kind of thing. In addition to that, our external partners, the FAO, had provide us some resource, some experts that use data sets collected and the satellite imagery again in a very coordinated and strategic way to analyze what is happening on the ground. So I think from where we sit, we have as best as possible at this point in time information that we think is accurate. In terms of the areas that you want us to access.
Just on that point though, all those, one of the things we struggle with as members of parliament is a lack of data. A lot of the information we have is anecdotal. We can't possibly go to every field, etc. So where you have that information, could you break it out, not by parish, but by constituency, and share that information with members of parliament? I think it would be greatly appreciated.
All right. So we are committing again that the details that we have, we can share. Sure. I have asked Mr. Price right here immediately to put that together so we can.
How long do you think that will take, Mr. Price?
No time, man.
In a week?
I will work with Radha. I will work with Radha to get those data out to.
Even though your mic is on, I can't hear you.
Okay. I will work with Radha to get the information out by the end of next week.
Thank you.
All right. Quickly, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we're really running out of time now.
Yeah, recall that we had indicated some time ago that we are restructuring Radha, and it's targeted in terms of the number of extension officers, the ratio for that to change. That is underway. Yes.
Completion date.
Well, you know, this.
Or it's one of these on.
No. I'm just saying that we have been derailed, but we're going to get back to it. And we have expended the first tranche of fund. We have the document. It's completed. It's to go back to cabinet for approval based on the outcome of what they. No. The tranche now to move to the final restructuring because the consultancy came in.
Mr. Phillips, no cross-examining. We're not going too deep into each ministry at this first meeting. It's not a deep dive meeting. This is we want to kind of get a sense of the overall state of play. I'm going to, after the ministries make their presentations, propose a series of dates for follow-on meetings when we can do the deep dive into any particular area that the committee is interested in. So I just want to, since Mr. Crawford is very insistent, and I think Mr. Williams, just one follow-up question from each of them. Go.
Well, in fairness, Mr. Chairman, I was courteous to say I'll do two and wait for others. And then all of a sudden I was almost disqualified.
So just go quickly.
Yes. Chairman, question to the Minister of Agriculture and Mining. Now, I am in a constituency that has Windalco, and I've observed a disproportionate number of roof damage compared to the wind that we should have experienced. Further research have led me to the hypothesis that those roofs were weakened by the bauxite, dust, etc. In that space. I've equally found cases, lawsuits against the bauxite plants and industry that show that that is a fact. Is there any consideration for those areas that the weakened roof would have caused greater damage? Zinc roof. The mixture of water and bauxite does have proven itself to weaken zinc. Secondly, the welfare, have there been consideration knowing the dependence on the reaping, the dependence on the output, and also the timing of Christmas for many, including Saril, Gungo, etc. Has there been any consideration for welfare interventions in the interim period for those who have been affected? And my final question, backyard chicken has been a staple throughout Jamaica. Many have lost their chicken in the hurricane, but others have lost it to the lack of electricity. Is there any planned intervention for those persons who are backyard chicken farmers?
Thank you. And Mr. Williams, final question for this.
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, in your presentation,
Could you speak a little louder?
in your presentation, I'm just trying to quote what you said, so you can pick it up. You said roads queued up and that you had to reassess and redistribute. I just wanted to be very clear what you meant by that. That's one. Two, you mentioned $229 million worth of damage. Could you just say, just for my information, what the 229 represent? It's total damage to the sector, which would include infrastructural damage, roads. And if anything I've asked is in
I think a breakout is in the.
if it's in there, just say
it's
that.
in there.
Yeah,
It's in there.
I got it late, so I didn't go through it, but I've been browsing through and I've seen some of the questions that I plan to ask. I've kind of seen the answers. So if the answer is in your report, then just say
Yeah,
so.
it's in there. Go, just wrap up for me. Sorry. Could you just press back your mic? I thought you were finished, Mr.
Yeah, I just want to know what is meant by. I'm kind of figuring what is meant, but I just want to be sure.
Okay.
Reassess and redistribute.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Pierce.
So before I get to the roads, I'll just deal with the welfare and those issues. Food security was mentioned as a very important activity. And I just want to reassure that we are doing all the necessary things, salvaging what currently exists for redistribution, and we are providing support for farmers who have crops that can be salvaged in one area. We are prepared to help with redistribution to other areas. The ministry have trucks and vehicles to be able to do that. This is something that we do anyway, so it's about continuing that exercise. Or we are able to provide support for private providers to aid in that exercise. We have contemplated what the food security demand on a monthly basis for the country is, for especially things that were badly damaged, cash crops and those things. And we are prepared to facilitate their importation up to a point where, as soon as the recovery kicks in, we're able to seize that and to enable local farmers to be able to access the market space. So we have that. And so Christmas, we are hoping, will not be as good as it used to be, but may not be as bad as, you know,
it could otherwise be.
It could be, even for eggs. So we are asking the companies that supply eggs was short before, to actually import eggs to bring in. And that's a first in a very, very, very long time, just to take.
All right.
We have assessed it, and it's.
I think
it's
you
not
haven't answered
warranted.
Mr. Williams' question.
The welfare situation is that while the ministry is responsible and is engaged in trying to bring back production, it is lives and livelihood that were impacted. And so we are reaching out to the farmers across the country in terms of aiding in their stability by, there's a committee I mentioned which deals with that. And so we are out there providing packages and providing support.
And
Yes,
I imagine
all
you'll be
over.
working with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security
Yeah,
in that.
that's what I'm saying. It's not really our responsibility, but we feel so moved. And so we have been doing that across the island,
Could you
especially
answer
for
Mr.
water.
Williams' question? No?
Damaged roof, damaged roof and zinc. That is something that is a structured way to deal with that. The reports come in, the bauxite company respond accordingly. I will be ensuring that they respond accordingly. So those reports, we'd like to get them in, and apart from that, they're actually helping right now, right, to replace, being driven by the JBM. Already I have signed off on monies. There's a, well, I'm not sure I should say that because it doesn't come off. There's a ship in the port with a whole heap of zinc to help the bauxite people. But they are working through to get that off. But in the meantime, I've already approved under the JBM for them to use some monies that they have in their budget. And they have started that. So please check on the ground and let us know if that is happening. We're prepared to respond. And the backyard chicken, we are committed 100. We're buying 100,000 chickens as quickly as possible and to give them out free to get, that activity going. Should help Christmas, should help the recovery. So we want to know the needs that you have in that regard. In terms of the roads, I'm going to ask Mr. Edmondson to quickly respond to the Rada Farm Road. You ask about redistribution, reassessment.
Turn on your mic, Mr. Edmonds.
Yes, so of course, so quickly answer a question about those roads that would have been assessed and actually gone through procurement and no action was taken on them and suffered damage. We'll have to reassess those roads. So that's why we group them together to make sure that we have those separate from the freshly damaged roads. Okay.
All right. Mr. Permanent Secretary, I want to thank you very much. You and your team, you've been very helpful. You gave us a very comprehensive report in a short period of time. But I'd ask that you follow through with breaking out the assessments by constituency and sharing it with members of parliament who keenly need the data. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask the Ministry of Finance and OPM to just come and share because those two ministries, I think, can give not so much a sector specific as an overview. Sorry? we can stay here forever, but I'm concerned for the staff. Thank you very much, Mr. Pierce and the Agriculture. OPM and Ministry of Finance.
But I'm wondering if they have not yet reached. Okay. Not clear.
OPM still hasn't, I know they were in transit. It looks like they haven't arrived. Ministry of Economic Growth is within the OPM, but I would.
No, separate.
They're separate now. Okay. So I would just take a quick overview because I think we're going to get a very high level explanation of the impact on the fiscal from Ms. Morrison. And then I would invite Ms. Carol Palmer and her team to come next. And you can probably sit where you are so we don't have to shuffle you over. So Ms. Morrison.
All right, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So in terms of the questions that we had received, it was really in relation.
Okay, you may
In
need to-
terms of the questions that were received, was in relation to the financing. It was more in relation to the financing.
Right. So just to you may have missed the overview I gave to the previous permanent secretary. I was saying we've asked some specific questions to sort of stimulate the responses. But if you want to take an approach of just giving an overview, and then which might or might not cover the specific questions, and there might be follow-up questions that the members have. So just 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes.
Yes.
And then since you have fewer constituency specific answers, I anticipate your questioning will be short.
All right, so our questions, first question was to outline the main sources and amounts of funds available to the ministry to provide relief and recovery assistance in the event of national disasters, and how long will it take for those funds to be dispersed. We did provide a response with a table, so I will just indicate what is here is what would have been in place on October 28 in terms of our disaster risk financing. It was sent late, but it's here. Yeah.
Okay.
I run through.
Could we circulate it by email just to continue? We'll just circulate to the members by email so we can catch up.
Yeah, she has it.
No.
Okay. So at October 28, what we had in place in terms of disaster risk financing policy would have been the contingencies fund with $5.3 billion, the National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund with $1 billion. We had policies with the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility for tropical cyclone. The amount would have insured is a 14.8 billion. I'm giving the Jamaica dollar equivalence is $14.8 billion. Excess rainfall, 6 billion. Earthquake, 17.6 billion. For the IDB credit contingent facility, $46.2 billion. The World Bank catastrophe bond, $24.3 billion. And for the World Bank CAT DDO, $6.8 billion. So those figures give you a total of $122 billion Jamaican dollars. That is what is in place in terms of what would
Immediately available.
what would be available given the Hurricane Melissa disaster. Clearly something like the earthquake doesn't trigger. So those related to the tropical cyclone and to excess rainfall triggered, not all at the maximum. So that 122 billion is not what you should expect.
Oh, 122 is the maximum.
It's the maximum under the whole overall disaster.
In terms of what you anticipate based on what was triggered by the tropical cyclone, what would that total be?
All right, so everything is not yet assessed. We do have some that have dispersed already, some that's assessed. We have one that is definitely outstanding in terms of the assessment is still taking place. So for the, 1 second. I'm not seeing my table. All right, so for the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, the tropical cyclone would have been 91.6. That is, it's at what has dispersed is 70 billion. Of that, some bank fees would come out. So I think we have ended up with 68 million US. On the excess rainfall, the amount that was insured is 37.3. Of that, 20 million US has dispersed.
All right, no, you're starting. I'm getting a bit confused when you change the currencies.
Sorry.
Could you?
Because I don't have the dispersed amount
all-
in J. That's why I was giving you back the US.
All we're trying to understand, give it to us in one currency. What
right.
do we
All right, so
anticipate will be available based on whatever we qualify for from the policies and the disaster we had, was that total that we anticipate will be available. And then you can break it out into what has already been disbursed and what you're awaiting. Just the total. If you want to give me a figure in Jamaican and a figure in US, that's fine.
We're expecting, okay, so the 122 billion J that I gave you would be equivalent to 753 as what is the overall policy. We're expecting approximately 622 million US from that. 753.
Okay.
Approximately.
Okay. In total, 622 million. You can continue. Was there?
All right. So what has already disbursed is the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility amounts, the World Bank Catastrophe Bond has been approved. We're expecting disbursement December 1. The IDB Credit Contingent Facility, we are awaiting the assessment of how much of that will be disbursed. And the World Bank CAT DDO, we have commenced. It would include our estimated amounts for that.
You keep saying that you're waiting on a final assessment. So the 622.
So you asked what we were potentially expecting.
Yeah, so this is a potential expectation.
Yes,
but
including what has already disbursed.
Disbursed. But you're still waiting on that final
Yes, we're
after
still
the
waiting on
assessment.
one, yes.
Okay.
The IDB Credit Contingent Facility for how much of that
Okay.
will be
But
disbursed. So
of
we have
this-
an estimate. We have an estimate.
Of the 753 potential total coverage, 622 is your estimate of what we'll be able to
620,
claim
okay.
on.
The 622, the IDB Credit Contingent Facility at October 28 was 285 million. We were in the process of doing an amendment to increase it. All of the things had taken place. The IDB board had not yet approved. They have approved it since, and so that 285 has moved to 300 in terms of what would be available. Right. So it is likely, but I'm not saying we are getting the 300. It is likely.
All right. I have, you were finished your initial presentation?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Did you have anything else to share with us before we start asking you questions? I know you were interrupted by Member Phillips.
Well, you had two other questions.
Okay, go ahead. Respond.
All right. Your other question was about how much resources have MOFPS provided so far for MDAs for relief assistance. So a total of $1.5 billion has been disbursed. There are other amounts that we are in the process of preparing. In terms of the 1.5 disbursed, there was a $350 million approval for withdrawal from the National Disaster Fund. That would have been ODPEM. There is 189 million from the Constituency Development Fund. It's incorrectly noted on the thing. Constituency Development Fund for MPs too, and 57 million for councillors to the Ministry of Local Government. There is also $1 billion that has been disbursed to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We are in the process of preparing the others that have been directed by the Cabinet. So they'll be out by later this week.
Okay, so most of the figures that we heard, for example, from the Ministry of Agriculture, most of their funding would have come from reallocation of previously budgeted amounts. The incremental amount from the Ministry of Finance to the line ministries is just 1.5 billion thus far.
Right. In terms of approval for the Ministry of Agriculture, we have not yet disbursed in relation to Melissa.
And question 3?
Okay, so with respect to question 3, which was how much does Ministry of Finance anticipate it may be called on to provide to mitigate damage caused by Melissa? The Ministry of Finance will be providing the funds on the direction of the cabinet. So we would not.
But at a minimum, we would expect it to be the 622 million that you get under the various insurance and contingencies that you mentioned earlier.
Well, that is what is available.
Pretty much
Would be
in the
available,
short term, in the immediate term.
in the short term, from the official policy instruments that we had in place. I would like to add that subsequent to the hurricane, we have gotten indications of the possibility for other flows. So one in particular, the IMF has indicated that we can access the rapid financing instrument. And so we would be seeking to do that as well, where we have moved to do that.
But you haven't quantified the amount yet?
All right, so again, they would need to tell us what's the max that would be available. We believe we are able to pull down 430 million, but it is possible that that can
Be
go up.
increased. Okay, thank you. Just my first and only question for you is I've heard economic commentators say that countries like Barbados have a debt pause clause, I think is how they refer to it, in their borrowing agreements, so that when there is a catastrophe or disaster like this, it can suspend, you get a moratorium on payments for a particular period of time. Did we have any of those, or do we have similar clauses in any of our loan agreements?
Okay, so it's, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have them in our agreements at this time. It's something that has come up, but basically what those clauses do is delay the payments for maybe a 2-year period, but you then need to.
You ultimately have to pay back the money, but it gives you the cash flow.
It doesn't get the maturity.
It extends the maturity.
Change.
Oh, the maturity doesn't change. But it gives you a breathing room in terms of the short-term cash flows that you can...
If you need it. Yes.
You can redirect to recovery. But in our case, that's only theoretical because we don't have those at this time.
No.
Any questions for... Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. The 622 million US dollars that we would be able to access initially, is any element of that interest bearing, or is all of that just insurance payout?
Some of it are loans.
Some of it would be loans.
It is loans.
What would be the interest rate element on average? And sort of give us.
All right. Let me get that information and provide it back to you.
So for this, I would love the minister to be able to give us an idea at some point as to what is the cost to the country to be able to access this, and if we go as far as needing to access the rapid finance from the IMF, what would that cost be also? How does that impact our national debt? And my final question is, all of these facilities that are available to us, what percentage of GDP would that assist us in terms of recovering to spend? So I know it's a loan, I know it's not us generating that GDP, but if we have a 30% gap in the initial estimate, what percentage or what part of that 30% gap would this help to alleviate in the immediate future?
All right. So again, I'm going to come back to you on that because the recovery is going to take place over more than 1 year. And so we would need a better idea of what it looks like across the years. We are in fact expecting to come to the Parliament with the third supplementary shortly, and that at that point we would have some more information.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Just on what the member was asking, of this 622, and you just said that part of it is loan, how much of that 622 or estimated 622 you suspect or have as loan? And does the ministry have an estimated figure of what the damage and reconstruction would be?
All right. Approximately 342 million of the 622 would be
Okay.
loans.
So a little bit over half.
Yeah.
342 will be, all right. And then I guess you'll follow up with the information that you asked on the, and is there an estimated figure that the Ministry of Finance has on the damage that has been, from the hurricane? We hear
So
the Prime Minister came with a figure, so I just want to know if,
Right. So the Planning Institute of Jamaica would have been doing the assessment. The Prime Minister's figure would have been informed by that.
that's a 60.
I suppose by the time the minister comes to Parliament with the supplementary estimates, she would have a figure from the PIOJ. All right. I don't think we need to detain Ms. Morrison anymore. Thank you very much for giving us what we understand is very preliminary figures at this time, but it helps, get a sort of order of magnitude of what we're facing. Without asking, not that I don't like P.S. Palmer to be close to me, but just to save you the shuffling around, and in the interest of time, I would just invite you to remain where you're seated, and then after your ministry, Mr. Hunter and his ministry can come over. But we'll just go straight into inviting you to give an overview, P.S. Palmer, from the energy and science, energy and technology perspective. Of course, many of us represent constituencies that still have not had light return to substantial portions of our parishes, and in some cases maybe to the entire constituency of South St. James. I don't know if it has still no JPS here. So we're anxious to hear from you, even while understanding that those are private sector companies, but we know you're in day-to-day contact with them, so you'd be able to give us the current state of play. Go ahead, Ms. Palmer. Your mic is on.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon.
And members of the PAAC. Yes, we are in daily contact, maybe sometimes more than once for the day, with JPS as well as our telecoms providers to get current and up-to-date information on the strategies that they are employing to get the country back on track. Unfortunately, I am not able to give you what is the plan, because that has to come from JPS. And as I indicated to you in our conversation this morning, perhaps it would do the committee well to invite JPS, Flow, and Digicel, as well as the OUR, to appear before the committee to give full and better particulars. It is a very challenging time for us as a ministry, but we do not control what these entities do, though we can seek to apply pressure. You may recall what the ministry did under Minister Vaz last year for Beryl, and really pushed for JPS to respond. And we are doing much the same now, but we do not have full information on their plans. They share what they choose to share, if I dare say so myself. However, we have prepared answers to the questions we received, and my colleagues here with me, the Principal Director Todd Johnson and Principal Director Smith Newton, will speak to the electricity and telecommunications respectively. So we'll give you those responses now, and then we will take the questions you may have to the extent we are able to respond to them. Thank you.
Just a short absence, and I missed the entire presentation. Okay, so it would be more useful to have the companies themselves being represented.
We'd have to ask the committee that deals with infrastructure to call those agencies in and pull together a report for us so that we can take it from there. Because, yes, normally it would be the ministry and agency that is compiling the information from those relevant agencies to be able to respond. And why I said, Chair, you missed it, PS just said that really they haven't given any much more significant information to the ministry than it's probably available.
That is in the public domain?
Right. And they're just pushing as hard as they can to get the recovery, but you know, they wouldn't be seized of that level of detail to.
But I don't think there is anything that prohibits us from having those entities come before the PAAC. I must tell you, I'm particularly disappointed. I think after burial, the JPS was much better in projecting their recovery. And I can understand, you know, maybe in the hardest hit parishes, it would be too early for that. But certainly in Manchester and St. Mary, you know, we would expect that they could, even in St. Andrew, I know, although it's only 5% out in St. Andrew, that. I must tell you, I've been asking the regional communications officer for projections on a daily basis because it helps people to plan. It's not just that, you know, it may not be making it any quicker, but at least if you know it's going to be in 6 weeks' time versus next week, you can plan for how you're going to deal with, you know, a generator or whatever.
It doesn't really help us. Particularly gives a projection, but it's not of no use to us because.
No. Well, I don't know if they're giving it for St. Andrew, but they're not giving it for Manchester. They don't give any projection. Ms. Palmer, you go ahead.
Yes, committee members and chair, we have been pushing, and you would have heard in the press conferences that the government has been having about what is told, and even the CEO for JPS has been invited to speak. But there are many parishes, and it's in the report. We've given a breakdown by percentage for each parish, but that is not satisfactory to our people. Maybe I'm not supposed to say that. But it is not enough to say you've done 20%, 40%, 60% when people don't have light. And as one man said the other day, where he lives, they never lost light. So when you say you have restored 65% to the area where he is, that's not true, because they had the light all the time. So we are in a constant confrontation, if you will, with JPS about giving us some proper information and timelines so that the citizens can organize themselves. So the fight continues as far as JPS is concerned. Digicel has given us some projections in theirs, and I think Flow to some extent. They are working, and of course, a lot of their work in some areas is dependent on the return of electricity. So that's really the dilemma, sir.
Mr. Newell?
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question, but just for context. And I think that the context applies across the country. Electricity is life and death. There are constituents who reach out to me losing hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of medication. And they're in a situation where they're unable to replace it. And sometimes I don't get the same sensitivity. Now, last year, before I became a member of parliament, I was able to get better information from JPS after burial. Now, as member of parliament, I can hardly get any information. So I have a question. Is the ability of the ministry to push JPS hampered by the fact that a formal notice that their license will not be renewed has been provided? Is there any detection of that? And I wonder whether any light can be shed on that.
No pun intended. PS?
This way. The information we've been given is that they need to secure financing. And because we have pulled on the license, if you will, my choice of words, they are unable to attract capital. And I mustn't say this publicly, should I? The time remaining on the license does not allow them enough time to secure capital so that they can repay within the time of the license. And there's no guarantee that there will be a renewed or new license unless JPS is willing to agree to new terms. And we cannot step back on that. Right? The country has been suffering high price of electricity and all the other things that we've been talking about for years. And we have agreement approval from cabinet to push for these changes. So the issue is we are now seeking to see how we can assist and facilitate them securing capital.
Do you mean by that a sovereign guarantee?
Not sovereign guarantee, I cannot tell you that. But what is being done is there's a request before us for an extension of the license that will give them wiggle room, is the word I want to use, so they can secure some financing.
So, just for clarification, you had said, PS Farmer, and I just want to get clarification, that there are changes to the terms of the license which the ministries or the government is pushing for.
Yes.
But in the circumstances, isn't it the company that now holds the handle in these negotiations?
That's what they feel. But that's not it, because if they are dependent on us to be able to secure financing, then we have the handle.
Well, Chairman, I don't think we want to have a public negotiation.
But we want to know what we're facing.
Yes, but I think we're kind of we're giving away our hand, our card and everything with some of the questions, I must admit. So I'm not sure if we want to go public.
Mr. Crawford, I am certain P.S. Palmer can handle herself. You don't need to defend
her. All right, I withdraw then, Chair.
I know her very well, and I feel certain she can walk between the raindrops. Mr. Phillips.
No, Mr. Phillips not in line yet. Mr. Phillips not in line.
Mr. Phillips was
and Mr. Phillips, unless Member Burchell.
Yes, I was next.
Also.
Yes. So go ahead, Ms. Burchell.
You turn off our mic twice already, so please have it recorded. So you can. I will yield to Ms. Burchell, Member Burchell, after which I'll ask my question. And then, Mr. Phillips, you are next in line.
The speaker is helping you to chair.
You like to tell us. Anyway. Could you turn off your mic?
Madam Speaker is helping you to chair.
I will not say a word. You turned my mic off 2 times already. So I have lost my space in the line twice. And I am a decent, obedient member of the committee, unlike the rubber rousers. So I shall
It's the order. It's the order
right,
in
so
which
well,
you
let's
catch
go with
the
the
eye
order
of
then.
the presiding officer.
Well, let me show you.
Anyway,
No, that's what you must catch
no.
the eye.
Ms. Birchall, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. P.S. And while you push for more information from the service providers, especially JPS, when they send a report that says St. James has 79% of its customers still being out, it really doesn't paint the picture for deep rural constituencies, which are 0% recovered, you know. So when they break it out, if you could ask them to separate or disaggregate the data so that I can then work with my producers, my chicken farmers, and other producers in the constituency so they can have a timeline as to when they can ramp up their production. Because not one light post has been raised in South St. James since the passage of Hurricane Melissa. The wires, a lot of them, in trying to clear the pathway, we've had to cut them to get vehicle moving through the constituency. So 79% just means that the Elegant Corridor in Montego Bay has electricity, and parts of Bogue, that's a city. The rural constituencies are still in 100% darkness.
Through you, Chair. My mic is already
No,
on,
I
Chair,
thought you-
so through
Mine
you.
is
Ms.
on
Palmer
too.
was going to respond.
Unless you're going to answer one at a time. Go ahead.
Did you have a
The
response?
fact is, we have asked JPS to break down the figures because telling people percentages don't mean anything to the average person, right? 76 or what? Right? So we have been pushing, but only this morning I've sent a letter to the OUR because we need the OUR to help us to fight this fight.
Perhaps the OUR might be an agency that we could usefully.
Yeah, to include them, she suggested it.
Right. So, at the end of the meeting on the AOB in terms of scheduling, we can deal with that. Okay, Mrs. Honest, rather.
Very good. PS, you may not be able to respond, but I'd like for you to just take this notation so that it would be considered by JPS in particular in terms of how they approach the resumption of electricity, especially in spaces that are rural. Well, I pay keen attention to the fact that the notation is paying customers. So the percentage is not necessarily indicative of how many persons do not have light, but who they are responsible to give electricity back to. The parish manager in each parish, I feel, is a good contact. I have the parish manager's number for St. Andrew, Kingston and St. Andrew. I think other MPs would need to do the same. I would love for them to give us an indication instead of percentages, the critical spaces that need electricity first. So for my constituency, you don't have water as one of the things that lack of electricity is giving us challenges with. So telecoms and all of that. But I would ask that the Ministry of Science and Technology just tack onto it which areas from NWC have electrical pumps so we can tie it back into the information in terms of how JPS prioritize return of electricity to relevant spaces so that we do not continue to have a water problem as well because we have a problem of electricity. So if they could focus on those areas as first priority. And then there are many members of parliament like myself who are willing to assist JPS if you say this particular road needs to be widened in terms of the landslide to 20 feet so that we can pass, then that helps us to be able to help them restore the electricity to the spaces that are impacted. Or if we have a breakaway that we are going to need to dig into the hillside, we are aware. They're not communicating, so we don't know what we can do to help or which tributaries they use. So in Beryl, they would have been able to say to us, The reason you didn't get back on Irish Town Road is because we traveled through Bermuda Mount. We don't know. We want to be able to help them where we can as MPs. So
and
if
those
they
MPs
can give us that
who have
information,
access to heavy equipment.
right? Because some of us would, some of us do, and for at least for those who can help, then it means that all their other heavy equipment can be diverted to where they don't have, so they can get other members of parliament back up and running.
Okay,
in their respective.
I'm sure the ministry will take that on board.
So
but
that
remember,
is for
we have
the light.
a ministry that we haven't taken.
We're going to take
yet.
one more now. Hold on, Chairman. Chair, this is important, you know.
I know you may not.
You see, when
be
we
on
get
that
to some
side of the mic
places to
very
be
often,
able to actually
but-
serve our constituents.
But I don't want you to totally dominate the
Instead
conversation.
of-
There are many other
No, we don't
members
want to.
who want
We
to
don't
participate.
We don't want to. It's not that. This actually benefits all members of parliament. You know, how many of you have been in touch with your parish manager? None.
All of us have.
No, see? All right.
But
Some don't seem to
not
do
with
that.
any positive results.
All right. No, man, it will. It will. And last but not least, for the parish managers to assist us with naming the communities. Instead of saying 75% return, since it's a parish by parish arrangement for particularly JPS that they have established, they would therefore be able, even if they need our help, to say community by community, when is their projected date to return electricity to that community.
Thank you. All right, if there's Mr. Crawford and Mr. Phillips in that order.
Thank you, Chairman. Is there currently, or is there plans to, or are there plans to have the government have an input into priorities, what do you call it, reinstallation? For example, many schools still don't have electricity, and despite not having last roof, etc., are having a very difficult time reopening. And as member from East Rural St. Andrew indicated, many areas that host water pumps haven't gotten back electricity. And by extension, other persons are having health crises. Schools as well are having health concerns because of the inability to flush and other things. So is there currently, or will there be future plans to have, in other circumstances such as this, the government to intervene and influence the priority reinstallations and reconnections?
Go ahead, Ms. Powell.
Tell you, and maybe from member from East Rural spoke, there is a collaboration among JPS, National Water Commission, and the telecommunications providers. Yes? And there is also a mechanism for prioritization the water sources. So perhaps what I should volunteer is if members of parliament would send to me the particular areas for themselves, and we will now take it up constituency by constituency with JPS, because the Water Commission is already working with JPS to try and get all of this done. So if we get all the information together, and then maybe we are going to be bombarding them to get the water, because as a health professional myself, in my first profession, it's not lost on me the issue of having water in an area. It is not lost on me at all, right? And maybe I'll have words with the Minister of Education or my colleague PS with respect to Ministry of Education to see what the collaboration is with JPS so that the matters can be addressed, because they're all very serious matters, very, very serious matters at the risk of health issues across our country.
Mr. Philip.
Thank you, Chairman. Madam PS, in the earlier dispensation about the issue with JPS and the ministry in trying to come to a common ground, financing is a little bit heartrending, because at the end of the day, it is the citizens who is like the grass under the hoof of the cow. Is there a time frame for this to be settled? Because one, if it is not, then how long will this be dragged on with JPS actually not meeting their end because of lack of financing and getting the country back to some semblance of normalcy in dealing with the restoration? Also, one member said it, communication with JPS and us members of parliament, and it was said by the member here, was way much better. I would love to know, if there is a point person in each parish that we can talk to. And I tell you why. Whenever there's electricity restored in a community or on a road, say Grove Road in Mandeville, but Grove Close has no electricity, but the road next door has, or the beginning of Grove Road has, but the rest of it, the amount of calls that we are bombarded with, and we can't respond because, truth be told, I don't know who to talk to. And if you do speak to someone, they can't give you any information at all. So if that can be put in place immediately just for communication, but I don't even have a number for the parish manager. Right? And each time that there's a disaster, there's a different individual you speak to, or you hear that that person is no longer there. So just give us a point person in who. You would imagine the parish manager is busy dealing with everything, but just give us a point person to communicate with. Thirdly, in the clearing of roadways, there are many areas where the JPS poles are still down, and residents are afraid to even cut it because they feel as if they cut it, there's no electricity coming back because of a pole that needs to probably be replaced. We can't get relief into some of these areas. So even just a time frame for them to say, hey, we're at least coming in to clear the pole. Because if they're going to wait until they're restoring electricity in some of these areas, there are a lot of residents are going to be left abandoned because we can't get to them. So those are my three.
You want to just take the final question from Ms. Burchell and then we wrap up?
Yes, PS, as is the case with the National Water Commission, when they are unable to provide water to customers, they find trucks through the pipelines, then they have to truck the water to them. Is there anything in our clause with the GPS that will compel them to provide other means, such as generators, etc., to our main areas like schools and clinics and stuff? Can we compel them to put some interim measures?
Police stations.
Police stations as well. Can we compel them? I have 3 high schools, Malden High, Cambridge High, and Anchovy High, that started on Monday without any form of power. So if JPS is unable to come into our constituency and start re-energizing us, can we compel them to provide alternate sources of energy in the interim?
Go ahead, Ms. Palmer.
Think, and I'll inform myself properly, but I do not think the license makes any compulsion to JPS to provide power in those circumstances. So we would have to see how we can work that around, because generators have been provided in the relief system, and No, I'm not speaking, and it's coming generally. So perhaps as I've been getting lists, what am I setting up myself for? As I've been getting lists for Starlink to go out into the parishes, maybe you can send me yours as well, and I'll see how we can get generators to the public facilities, because it's really for public facilities. remember, for government,
Wait.
not for everybody.
Chairman, I want to
Last question. Last.
not a question, but as it relates to generators in schools, I hold some concern. There are dangers that come with a generator that, and there's also limited training within our schools currently on how to utilize generators properly. So while it is that I understand the immediate impact that it may have, necessary steps must be taken from the exhaust standpoint and the probability of explosion standpoint to ensure that, especially with young children, that we cater to that.
Impatient of debate. Just in closing, you didn't
Chairman,
respond
may I
to
answer
Mr. Phillips.
Number one, we are currently in active negotiations, discussions with JPS to see how financing can be facilitated for them. That is ongoing. In fact, I can tell you we took a matter to cabinet yesterday. So and that's the third cabinet submission since the hurricane. So it's an active process. We're not allowing our citizens to just languish for service.
The scale of what you're talking about to restore the grid, I mean, it's broad numbers, $500 million US. I'm asking you, I'm not suggesting that that's the figure.
It's absolutely not the figure that we've gotten. And I wrote to, because I was directed by cabinet yesterday to have OUR verify the figures we got from the JPS. So I guess when that is done, the cabinet will determine how we make that public information. But it's not $500,000 US. Absolutely.
$500 million, I said,
Half a billion?
Yes. I said $500 million. No, I could never say $500,000.
Maybe that's closer to what they are proposing. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You want any closing?
What was the other question here? Communication having a central point of contact. Yes, I will ask JPS for communications for the parishes. I'm sure they will tell me that you must use their app.
But I don't know how we to use the app when we have no telecommunications and we have no electricity. So
yes, I will follow through with that and send the information to the Parliament.
Yeah. All right. So just in closing, Ms. Palmer, separate from the financing issues, I think JPS could do better in terms of their communication with MPs and giving some projection. So we ask you to intervene with them on our behalf in that regard. Thank you. And thank you and your team for coming out and responding. And, I know you had pre-scheduled appointments today, and we appreciate you rearranging your schedule to be here in person with us. And we always welcome your presence. Thank you. All right, is that Miss Williams and Mr. Hunter? You're too far. Please come closer. You while the science and technology team leaves, you can just come closer. Yes. Is Labor and Social Security here?
Yes.
Way up in the back corner here. You slipped my eye. Okay, stand by. I'm sure there's some question. We're not going to make you waste your afternoon. So we'll ensure we leave some time for you. All right, welcome, PS. Thank you for responding so quickly to the committee. You may have gathered by now that what we've ask you to do is to start with a statement no longer than 10 minutes, just giving an overview of the state of play, 3 weeks and a couple of days. Members, one meeting, please. Thank you. Just give us a state of play for your portfolio. 3 weeks on out of since the passage of the hurricane, and what we can look forward to in the coming weeks and months.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm here today with the National Works Agency, Mr. E.G. Hunter, who is the CEO, as well as Mr. Varden Downer, Senior Director for Project Implementation, and my team from Central Ministry, Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. They are here as well. I'm Arlene Williams, Permanent Secretary. We have Principal Financial Officer, Mrs. Judith Rob Waters, Mrs. Janet Coleman Howlett, Senior Director, Works, Infrastructure Policy and Monitoring. We also have Mrs. Alicia Edwards, our Principal Director, National Spatial Data Management Branch. And she has accompanied me because I wanted the committee, if time allows, to have a sense of the evidence-based type of research and decision-making that we are doing in this ministry, because she, along with ARTPEM and our local and international partners, are doing the mapping of the damage in the country. We also have Ms. Christina Gardner, Senior Director, Housing Management Branch, Ms. Monique Gibbs, who is Senior Director, Strategic Planning, Performance Monitoring, Evaluation and Risk Management, and Ms. Leandra Trotman, who is Senior Technical Coordinator in my office. Following the passage of Hurricane Beryl, our country has really experienced significant damage in terms of our road network and even in terms of our housing stock. To date, we have estimated the damage, and these are very preliminary figures for the damage to the road network at $35 billion. In the interest of time, Chair, we would seek your permission to do a PowerPoint presentation capturing the questions that you would have asked. Well,
certainly, you have,
yeah.
Don't think there's any objection. Go ahead.
Yes, and so Mr. Downer is
you're
going to
connected
do
already
that.
to the system?
We
Oh,
gave it to,
you're attempting to connect now?
we delivered the presentation to the House. So, yes, thanks.
It might take a couple of minutes to get it up. So in the meantime, just proceed. I know if it was Mr. Hunter, he would need no PowerPoint. He would have covered every corner of the PowerPoint slide with language, which he has in abundance. So maybe you could start while we work on getting up this first slide.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members. NWA is represented by just two, Mr. Donner and myself. The rest of the NWA staff are out there busy clearing roads, so it's not an affront.
I don't know where they are clearing, but not in Manchester, so don't draw my tongue.
Very quickly, Chairman, members, let me just set in context how the NWA approaches natural disasters, and in particular, Melissa. We do 3 cycles of mitigation in a given financial year. We start in April, May, because the hurricane season starts in June. So we do a series of drain cleaning and debushing, mostly drain cleaning, in April, May, just before the season starts. And this is done on a constituency by constituency basis. Ordinarily, we would do another cycle in August into September, because statistically, the hurricanes tend to peak in September, October. And then we do the third and final cycle in December. This year in particular, we did 2 of the cycles in April, May. And that's largely because we were watching, again, because of history and background, we tend to watch the different forecasts and events coming off the coast of Africa. And so, in fact, for Melissa, we were able to see something manifesting from pretty early, and we started our prep work for Melissa. 2 significant items that we undertake just before a hurricane hits. One is the establishment of our emergency communication center. This is a huge room at the NWA that is peopled by volunteers from staff, and they are there 24 hours a day. And they receive calls and reports from across the island. And they log those reports, log those incidents, and it is that logging of the incidents which would then direct where we make an intervention once we start working. And it also helps in terms of verifying the veracity of the bills that would come in. So if an incident was not reported and then it manifests itself in terms of a bill for clearance, then we have reason to interrogate. So we do 2 things. It allows us to attend to the issue, and it also protects us in terms of anyone who may tend to be a bit adventurous. So we set up that center. I think we opened on the Friday before Melissa, and we continued for, I think, 2 weeks after. And we have all the pictures, all the videos of all the incidences which occur. So in addition to the mitigation cycles that we did in April, May, we also identify a number of vulnerable spots just before the hurricane. In particular, Sandy Gully, Gem Gully, and Burger Gully were identified to us as potential spots for some kind of calamity and required immediate intervention. And so there was an intervention. In addition to which, we then allocated funds on a constituency by constituency basis, albeit pretty close to the event, but somewhere between, each constituency was allocated somewhere between 3 million to 10 million, depending on our prognosis of the impact of the storm. And so the fact is that we did this work preparatory to the event occurring. Once the event occurred, you win the game by answering the question, what do you do the first day after? In fact, in our case, the question was, what do we do 3 hours after? The fact is that Melissa departed Jamaica, I think about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, the Tuesday night. And the very first reconnaissance event was undertaken by me, myself, and I, at the instruction of the Prime Minister, to determine whether or not Norman Manley Airport would have been usable, because by then reports had come in that Montego Bay was compromised. And so I braved the wind and the rain. I was accompanied by some JDF personnel, and we piloted the route to the airport and were able to report at midnight, the Tuesday night, that yes, Norman Manley could be used Wednesday morning. So that activity continued island-wide in terms of moving out to clear block roads. Again, like medical triage, in the immediate aftermath of an event, one, there's no distinction between NWA roads and parish council roads. So we move to clear all roads. That's the first thing. Secondly, there's no guarantee that we're going to clear all roads to 2 lanes, because the emphasis at that point in time is on clearance to afford passage. And we don't cart away the material at that stage. That is a subsequent stage. So the report that we will show will indicate the number of incidences. It will indicate the roads that have been cleared to single lane and indicates the roads that have been cleared, to doubling. There is a small percentage that remained which are blocked. And the final point I wish to make at this stage is that there's been a lot of commentary regarding building back better. And in that vein, Chairman, members, some of the roads which remain blocked, there's a serious discussion as to whether it makes sense to re-establish those roads. Because in a country where money is tight, it's a tough decision to spend $80 million to protect, 12 million or a small population. So it is a fact that there's a lot of habitation which has occurred in floodplains. And the notion that just cleaning drains will solve the problem is fanciful. The truth is that there are two items that you require: the capacity of the drain and the condition of the drain. Clearance of the drains deal with the condition. It doesn't address the capacity. The capacity of our drainage system is 60, 70 years old. They were designed 60, 70 years ago. And so, So those are my opening remarks. And I hope Mr. Downer can go into the details, and then we'll answer any questions that may arise.
The IT department apparently is having some challenges with it. So we're going to circulate it by email to the members as soon as possible. But I want you to complete from the presentation from the ministry, in particular from housing. So before we start the questioning.
So in terms of housing, while we don't have a preliminary estimate because the investigations are still being done, what I can say is that the ministry has taken significant steps to address the buildings that were damaged. From our research and from the investigations, preliminary though they be, we know that approximately 191,000 buildings were damaged. There is now taking place the disaggregation of the data to say, for example, what percentage of that is businesses, what percent is residents, what percentage is schools, and which is why we've invited today Miss Alicia Edwards, who will delve a bit more into that. I got also, because we in government do not operate in silo, and so I had some initial discussions with my colleague, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and she has advised that indeed investigations have started in terms of the MSMEs that were affected, and we do have preliminary figures here from what she has said. She has noted that approximately 70% of the business surveyed reported that their business operations have sustained damage of up to 2.5 million, and of this amount, 4% had damage below $500,000. And Chair, you may want to find out more from her at a later date. In terms of our residences, I was quite pleased to note, though the investigation has not yet been completed, that our 307 houses under the new social housing program have not been terribly affected. Apart from those areas that were flooded, the structural integrity of the building has stood up to the test. Also, you would note in terms of housing, Prime Minister would have announced grants totaling $369 million to members of Parliament. And I did watch the Parliament that day and saw the robust debates that were taking place in the House, including the adequacy of those grants that were given. But it's one pie, and of course, we would have met with members of Parliament. We would have implored you to use the building grants that were given. Members would know that the grants range from $10 million. There were some $7 million and others $3 million. And
I think you should clarify that that's per constituency. I don't want people
per
listening to think that
constituency.
is per individual.
No, not individual at all. Thank you, Chair, for that clarification. It is indeed per constituency. And so I have the Director of Housing here, as well as our Director or Principal Director from the National Spatial Data Management Branch. And at this time, I will invite her, with your permission, Chair, just to speak about the assessment of the damage.
You can turn on your, press the button on your mic. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, colleagues and Member of Parliament. So when we had the disaster, we activated a disaster response program that our international partners would have afforded us to, because we have the Esri Enterprise Agreement for the government of Jamaica. This activation allowed a strong and solid collaboration with us, the government of Jamaica, and an entity referred to as ICYE. ICYE, in a matter of a day, 24 hours of the event passing, was able to capture radar imagery of the island, of the most damaged part of the island. And then through a machine learning system, they were able to say...
Radar or satellite?
It's satellite imagery, but the type of satellite imagery is radar imagery, which is a quicker output than imagery you see, for instance, on Google Earth. So that sort of rapid output, we were able to then differentiate or to select and identify buildings across our most impacted parishes. While they identified this, they reached out asking if, as a country, through our Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management team, if they have a classification that's generally applied to structures, that classification in regards to damage. So we said yes. We sent them the description of each class, and they were able to attach this description to the buildings that they identified. So rapidly, they were able to tell us what level of damage per building happened across the most impacted parishes. So from that analysis, we're able to generate the initial figures. So at first, they captured Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, part of St. James, and then as more radar imagery, or should I say satellite imagery, came into their realm of analytics, they were able to push out closer to know the parts of Clarendon, and also from St. James, and also parts of St. Anne and Trelawney. So that's how we came.
What about Manchester? You just jumped right over?
My apologies, and also Manchester. Yes.
Okay.
So they were able to then update that figure, and we came to the conclusion rapidly that over 960,000 buildings were assessed. And from those 960,000 buildings, approximately 190,000 showed some level of damage. And that level of damage aligns with what the ODPEM would classify as level 1 to level 4 damage, level 4 being the worst destroyed.
So the 190,000 is only in those affected parishes or island-wide?
So that 191,000 would be our western parishes and Manchester, St. James, St. Anne, and part of Clarendon and part of St. Catherine. Clarendon and part of St. Catherine.
Okay. So do you have that by constituency? Or let me put it another way. We have been asked to, what's the thing called, Mikhail? Chat map? Chat map. No, man, it's something called chat map. And we've been asked to now go out and take pictures and drop a pin and do a burdensome amount of administration to support this, whether 10 million, 7 million, or $100,000 and $50,000 grants, right? And 3 million, right? And but it sounds like you have all this data already. So why are you turning us all into field officers to to go out there and recapture data that you have from satellite and radar images already?
So as I mentioned earlier, this is rapidly assessed data. We need to verify this information. There's no way the satellite, through the AI learning capacity that it has, that can give you our most realistic. So the confidence level that the ICYE pushed out is an 88% confidence. So they're 88% confident that it's put this type of data. But you on the ground would then confirm, verify if this information applies to your team.
Okay. There was another officer, you said, PS, who was to present. Mrs. Honus, could you turn off?
Yeah, Chair, before Ms. Gardner speaks to provide further clarity, I want to advise members that the government is really working hard to address the housing needs. And we have, as cabinet submission, approved in terms of containerized solutions. And I'm leaving that for Prime Minister to further update. But we are making significant efforts even in terms of developing a request for proposals. We're looking at housing in various levels, in terms of the temporary relief, in terms of short-term solutions and longer-term solutions. So we are thinking, for example, the immediate need, apart from the building grants that were given, we're thinking about the tarpaulins, we're thinking about tents and what is called the storm seal, which is a procedure that is used on roofs, that can rapidly seal the roofs. In terms of the short-term measures, the containerized house, and we are finalizing a cabinet submission that will go very shortly to cabinet, as well as the longer-term solution, modular and the prefab houses. And of course, we are going to continue to use our concrete structures because we have found...
Members, please, could we give the Permanent Secretary our attention?
Give more experience. Give more experience with the new social housing and how those have stood up. We are seeing that concrete is indeed something that we would recommend as a solution. We are looking at also at additional grants. And I say I'm going to leave the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of Housing, to make some further announcement. But I want members to be assured that we, as a government, are really putting forward our best foot, to address the housing needs. And these things are things that are being actively discussed by the cabinet at this time. And so I'll now turn over to Ms. Gardner.
Ms. Gardner?
Good afternoon, members.
Just before you go to Ms. Gardner, the PS and yourself had a session with MPs two Fridays ago?
November 7th.
And we made some, what I thought were reasonable recommendations to try and reduce the bureaucracy. The CDF program, for example, has housing assistance, which is giving out similar size grants, and which doesn't require us to go out there and geotag every house. So we're just wondering why in this stage of emergency response we're adding bureaucracy rather than reducing bureaucracy. We don't have field officers, members of parliament don't have field officers to go and send out in a particular constituency the size of South Manchester or South St. James or Northwest Manchester for that matter, to do, this widespread geomapping, and it's going to really slow down the response to people who are getting wet every time rains fall. And it just seems unnecessary. And we made the recommendations, but nothing material has changed.
So Chair, before Christina speaks, I just want to say that
You said you've made the recommendations and nothing has changed. I'm not in total agreement with that because I do know, and we have tried to be very, very accommodating of members. It isn't that we are unsympathetic towards the volume of work that members of parliament are called upon to do. But in terms of having information, and this is of course not casting any aspersion on any member of parliament. I believe in your integrity. But we do, in terms of the verification on what is needed, we've asked, for example, for just videos that can be sent to us, anything that would substantiate the government's spend. And so without trying to rehash that meeting, Chair, and I think that we had made significant progress in that meeting. In fact, I must thank members, including yourself, Chair, who have been sending us the videos and the images, and we are working very, very quickly once you submit the invoices to give you no problems to effect the payments. And we've promised that we'll do it within 5 days once it comes in, and we are committed. I know Ms. Gardner has been at Parliament before it starts to collect items from MPs. We are committed to helping in whatever way we can, recognizing that there are limitations.
I just want to acknowledge, I don't want you to get the wrong impression. Ms. Gardner has been very helpful. And if she had it in her authority, I know we would have a much easier time. But she's handcuffed. She's handcuffed
don't say that, Chair.
by the principal or the chief accounting officer. And so she can't really help us in the way she would like to help us. So, but I don't want to leave the impression, and I'm sure MPs don't want to leave the impression.
Coming out of that meeting, Madam PS, a lot of those persons who we are asking to help us are persons who have been affected also. Right? And I think coming out of the meeting, we were asking if there could be something, a stipend or something, because we have to be helping these individuals and ask them to leave their houses when they have no roof in many instances. And the size constituencies that most of us have, East Rural, Northwest Manchester, South, as much as we have the Ministry of Labour, SDC inside there, it is a lot of ground to cover. And you have given us a time frame to submit all of this. Many of us have been on the ground from the Wednesday, have taken photographs, we still have to call them now, but to go back over that, to go get that geotag is also asking the small team that we have to work with. It's my secretary that is out there helping me. I have to send my driver down to carry her through the constituency and beg her drive to come to committee meetings like this. No, and I'm serious. Right? But she has no light. She's affected. My other assistant, who is a heart trainee, is also affected. So that's why we ask if we can broaden the group that can help this, the arm. And we can't even download it unless we have Starlink out there in many instances. So it's just that additional help on the ground to be able to get the information. We have been putting in the geotagging when we can. But there are going to be some earlier ones that we don't have the geotag, but we have the video, we have the TRN, we have the phone numbers.
All right, I apologize. I should have really allowed Ms. Gardner to make her presentation. But you can see we all feel very passionate about this, PS. Ms. Gardner, just turn on back. Yeah.
Good afternoon, members. So we have been very facilitative in instances where members of parliament have raised the concern that they are unable to geotag, and we've asked for the information to come in and for the photos to be shared, because in those instances we try to map them with the data that already exists. As Ms. Mrs. Edwards would have shared, that we don't have it for every single constituency. So it's important that we get means of verification, as many as possible. And for the members sitting here, most of you have submitted or have been submitted. So to date, we have information that we're verifying from 22 constituencies, and we've been working individually with you, and I've been taking the calls and going through the process with you, and we continue to do that. We are trying our best as possible, and as best as possible, once we get the information, to move to payment. So I want to verify that we don't have any issues with payments, because we've not gotten to that stage, and we have committed to the 5 days, and we stand by that commitment to assist, because we are empathetic to the needs of the Jamaican people. So for those members that have issues, they can reach me directly. You don't need the Starlink internet connectivity to take the tags. Once you take the photo, Lisa? Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. We will verify, because that link was created to address 2 concerns that were raised by members of parliament. One, the sensitivity of the data being shared, and 2, internet connectivity. So we're going to review the link to ensure, because that link was created, that you wouldn't need data to input the information, but once you get to an area with service, then that information would be uploaded automatically, and then we would just print and process the information accordingly. So we will check on that, and I will provide an update as soon as possible. In relation to the members of parliament who require the data in terms of the hardware processing, we've made 2 options available, which we would have shared in the updated guidelines for the invoice, and to give you enough time to be able to submit, because we know that you're not connected with everybody. So we are giving you a window to take in the invoices when you have, and we don't wait on you to access all the grants. So once you have a set and you have an invoice available and ready, we will go ahead with that set. So we don't need to verify every single individual that you are sending in. We can do it in parts if that is the option that members of parliament wishes to utilize.
Okay. Thank you. I see Mr. Crawford and Mrs. I don't see Mrs. Onis. No, but Mrs. Onis, you have on your mic all the time. So it will invariably get turned off in order to allow those persons to speak. Mr. Crawford, Mrs. Onis, Ms. Burchell, and Mr. Newell.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I must add my voice to the request being made of the geotagging and the size of our constituency and the terrain. Sometimes when I see the hill that I must go to geotag, you might get a tag that is on the road, because that hill, to come down to go to the next hill. But geotagging, if the numbers are provided, then a random sample can always be taken. And if the paid field officers can go and audit that random sample of whatever number you want that random sample to be, 30%, 50%, 80% if you so intend. But an effort to have each of us go to 100 spaces to geotag. First of all, you're going to 200 spaces to choose who must get it in the first place. And then many of us have to go deliver it on their behalf. Because when you look at places like Loidas Vale, the cost to come down to this place to get it is more than the grant that we're giving them. So we have to organize to go back again with it. It is a difficult task and an uphill task, I must admit. The numbers are provided, the telephone numbers. A telephone audit can be done. And many don't even know how to send you. I thought you could have skipped it by saying, send me a tag. Many of these rural people don't know, don't have light, don't have internet, and many are not able to do it, don't know how to even tag you a contact worse a location. It is an uphill task. But I am still grateful to the facilitation that have been meted out to us by the ministry, because they have been trying to facilitate and guide as best as they could, and I am grateful for that. Now, I want to also add that the quantity of funds that were distributed, I presume we might be getting other funds, but there is pain in decision making when the scarcity is so high. When you have 400 names to choose 60, it is a difficult emotional thing for you to choose 60 and then tell the rest verbally that I don't want to be in charge of who's still wet up. And the quantity of funds for 60 people, even the least impacted gone over 60. The least impacted communities gone over 60 people for the $3 million. And so, I mean, when you tell a man to come collect 3 sheets of zinc, it is getting to my conscience because of the limited funds that is available. Now, as it relates to NAA, as was indicated, the funds to clear up the drains came 2 days before. Multiplicity of us was seeking to do that at the same time, leaving many contractors utilized, unavailable to us, because everybody was trying to do it at the same time. Additionally, multiple contractors are unwilling to work because of payment. To this point, we have not received payment for the drain cleaning, and therefore negatively affected our ability to do the cleanup. Is there any plan in place for the immediate payment of those persons that contributed to the drain cleaning, so that we hopefully can get them for the Christmas component that is coming up? The second question to NAA is, how are you intending to punish, for want of a better word, systems that were in place that has caused for greater damage than the storm would have normally created? I can speak to the highway and their drainage through many communities. We need adequate infrastructure for that quantity of water coming from those highway drainage, most of which is going into earth drains that erode people's land, but also create great flooding because the exit wasn't properly planned out. Speaking to communities like Moloch, like Bermody, most of Treadways that was flooded because of the water from the highways. So how are we going to punish the operators of the highway who clearly did a great job on the highway and very limited job for the facilitators of the highway through these communities? Thirdly, communities that are low-lying and therefore depend on soakaways and water dams have had very little maintenance in decades. They're almost treated like rivers that continue to flow. When, for example, instead the entire town is going mainly into quote-unquote soakaways. This have led to backup fulling of the soakaways, multiple risk of waterborne diseases, flooding in these communities. And I've made conversation, but how are we going to be treating these areas that need emergency desilting and not just drain cleaning? Those are my questions for NAA.
Thank you. Members, remember to try and contain your questions. We're minutes to 5 now. A lot of traffic for people to get home. So try and limit them to the essential ones, and the ones that are going to describe every road and roof in your constituency. Could you leave that to a one-to-one discussion with Mr. Hunter, who has promised to stay till 10 o'clock tonight, if necessary, to answer those? And we're not taking you out to the airport 12 o'clock tonight, if necessary. But we will do that after we have adjourned. So let me just allow Mrs. Honest to ask her 2 or 3 questions, and then no, I'm not.
No, you're next. You're next.
Oh, that's nice of you all. I didn't say I have one question. Thank you. Let me go with NAA first. Would you be able, I just got the presentation, but to give us an idea as to what is the cost of work done by NAA to date? I must commend you in asking the question, because I know a significant portion of our country was cleaned at least to one-way traffic so that we could get to our constituents. How much of a country is now at that place? At least one lane cleared so that no communities remain marooned. That's important for me. And at what stage would you be able to give a more fulsome appreciation of what it is going to cost to restore the roads that we are choosing to restore? When would we be able to determine the cost of that? And my final question to NAA is in respect of one particular road for me, the Irish Town Road. Constituents will ask, why are you not helping us to dig out the dirt and put a light post across so that we can have access? It is not fair that we have to cross the river. And I'm saying to them as Member of Parliament, it's actually illegal, both for them and worse me, to go out there and take up the job of the NAA in terms of restoration. Would you be able, in the spaces that NAA possibly think we will not, or it will be a long time before we're able to restore some roadways or ever restore some roadways, to quickly do that assessment so that we can notify the public as to what the options are available to them? There's no alternate route, or where the alternate route would be if we're not going to be able to restore to that particular space. That's for NAA. As it relates to the housing benefits, I commiserate with my members of Parliament, members behind me. However, I am so far very comfortable with the approach. I have found constituents who have told me that their house is damaged. And when you go to Google Maps, you realize that what they're telling you was there was never there. So I do understand the challenge that you face in wanting us to, as best as possible, provide some information you can use to verify. Because when you're faced with the Auditor General, you're going to be faced with the Auditor General by yourself. We will not be there with you. So the approach I've taken, which is why I went with NAA first, which has been very beneficial, is for my constituency, I've been able to reach someone from every single community to identify if there are missing persons, to identify persons are marooned, and what is their need. And we have been able to identify every house that way. If we have an area we can't get to, this leads me to know the join-up element of government. For those members of Parliament saying, can you give us some help? We don't have enough admin help. We don't have enough help for transportation. Can you give us some help in the areas we may have a challenge to get to break it up and say, Labour and Social Security, could you take this community and do the detailed assessment with whatever information we have at our disposal to identify the homes that will need support in that particular community while we are doing others? And so that is my question from the housing end of things, to see, because I think we're going down a slippery slope when we behave as if we can take over the role of the ministries, agencies, and department. We say we want more resources, but many MPs don't have a constituency office that replicates the ministry, agency, or department in terms of both the technical expertise and the budget for its staff. So instead of giving us more money, my recommendation is give us more assistance from the ministry, agency, and department to go into the spaces and help us to identify who are the persons who need and to what extent was their homes damaged before Hurricane Melissa. For you, Madam Permanent Secretary and Prime Minister, when I took a look at some of the homes in Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and I suspect it is probably going to be the case for a lot of our homes, I do believe concrete roof is good, but a lot of those homes were never built to ever take concrete roof. So what is the solution? You know, I don't know if they're going to have to drop in columns and beams on the wooden structures, on the concrete structures, to be able to take a new type of roofing. But between yourself and the technical experts, I'm not an engineer, though I have some experience. How do we deal with those homes that are partially good to be able to quickly get roof on them again in a permanent or semi-permanent way so that we can come back to normalcy in a very quick way?
Thank you. Over to you. You can take it order whether NWA wants to go first or housing for those two questions.
Okay, so I'll jump up first. Answer to Member Crawford's questions, the simple answer to payment is yes, payment will be made and made on time so that everyone will have
Just define
good Christmas.
on time. Just define on time because we're gone three to 4 weeks already.
Okay, so based on presentations that we made to Cabinet, a decision has been taken by Cabinet to disperse $5 billion to the NWA to address immediate expenses. So you have that, we have that assurance. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first one. The second issue you raised, Member Crawford, regarding Linstead and the propensity for flooding. Yes, that is true. You probably don't know this, but many years ago I went to high school, Dintil in Linstead. So it's an area I know very well. And even then, that situation was crucial. Desilting is a probability, but relocation has to be examined. I've been to enough flood out areas in Linstead over the last 50 years, and I say 50, not too loudly because of my youthful appearance, but I've been to enough flood out areas to know that relocation is probably a more sustainable solution. And in terms of the impact of highways on local roads, okay, so the NWA legally, we're responsible for main roads, and main roads are not busy roads or long roads or wide roads. They're roads in a book. So if it's in the book, it's mine. If it's not in the book, it's not mine. Now, it probably what you have identified is some sort of gap in jurisdiction. We don't have the legal power to compel the highway persons. But I'm sure the government has been talking about a one road authority for many years. And perhaps as that concept develops and matures, we may be able to close that gap. But it is something that we certainly will look at.
But while you don't have the authority, the assessment, have you done an assessment to determine the contribution of these new highways to the flooding of areas that previously?
No, we haven't.
Didn't.
No. But it is something that we could have a dialogue.
I thought the highway that is from part of the boy actually the sole reason why we didn't flood out this time around.
That's my road. That's not.
I know it's your road.
That's
why.
That's my road, and it's a brilliant road. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's your road.
That's my road. Yeah.
All right. But when we talk about areas like the ones going through Northwest and
toll roads.
when we talk about the Mobile bypass, I've heard people
Yes.
opine that has caused new
Yes.
channels, the water to follow different,
I've seen that
the
commentary.
drainage.
I've seen that commentary. I've also seen the engineering response to that commentary.
Can you share the engineering responses?
Sure. And the original commentary or the original dissertation regarding the impact was by, well-respected citizens of Montego Bay, but not an engineer. And the response to those allegations are based on engineering. And as a former engineer, you would grant some
As an
credence.
engineer.
You grant some credence to the latter position. But it's something that we look at.
No, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm assuming that some assessment has been done. And if that assessment says that's
And I can
not so,
I can share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Holness, in terms of quantum, as at today, we have provided access to 96% of all the roads that were impacted. I mean, the fact is that NWA is not in the news, perhaps because we have done very well that which we ought to do. And so we consider it to be our job, 96%. And that's access 2 lanes and single lane, because that's our initial strategy. We will then get back. In terms of there are some roads which remain blocked. I had a recitation of where they are. Do we have that part in? So in addition to the roads as well, we have been restoring traffic lights. And so far we have restored, I think, 270 traffic lights. Yeah. Okay, so 336 traffic lights were impacted. We have restored 271 and we are working through the others. The roads which have been open to 2 lanes, we will then revisit them for to 1 lane, I mean. We'll revisit them for 2 lanes. And the monies that Cabinet has voted for us will settle the costs to reopen and give us some money to do some immediate reconstruction to some of the drainage systems that were most severely impacted, as well as to do a little bit of reconstruction. We estimate that the total damage to the road network is about $35 billion. Preliminary. Now, we are not at this stage anticipating any kind of substantial reconstruction. We're just providing access and immediate repairs to improve what we call drivability. So as you mentioned, Ms. Burchell, before, maybe some shingles or some material that will improve drivability. And then at a subsequent stage, we will get into reconstruction and repositioning as we have to.
Housing? There were some questions for housing.
Oh, yes, that one. The engineers are relocating. Yeah.
No, the road. Relocate the road.
Yeah. We're looking.
The road, not the
We're looking at alternate roads, but I can tell you that purely from a technical point of view, we the engineers will always advocate for relocation and a different road. Beg your pardon?
Relocation.
No, the question was about the road. The road.
Yes,
Yes,
right,
not the
right,
community,
right.
no.
Because in some instances, in fact, there is a road in Trelawney. There's a road in Trelawney that was, there's a huge breakaway. We had to approach the neighbor to the Costas, what better attention, to go on their property. Interestingly enough, the law allows us to go on property, on a private property, and to construct a new road, and the liability to the government is only if there are crops that you have in economic crops that have been destroyed in that process. So yes, to the extent that it is technically feasible, that is something that we're looking at.
All right, I think there were some questions for housing from the first 2 questions.
Right. Just some comments to what you would have said, member. In terms of, in addition to the building grants, we still continue our regular programs in terms of our officers going out, doing the investigations, recommending grants for approval to fix roofs and other parts of the building. And we'll continue. I'm listening to the members, and we'll have further discussion with the Minister of Housing, who is the Prime Minister. I want to also advise, because you did speak about how buildings, you alluded to how buildings should be, and you are saying, in terms of how do you restore them and all of that. A committee that is now being chaired by Minister Montague is in operation, and in fact, within a short time, there will be some announcements as to the types of buildings that will be supported in the country. And even there are increased discussions about having no-build zones. Because when you look at the devastation and you look at where some persons are living and you look at the engineering solutions, even to address what has happened in some of the houses, it certainly would be way more expensive to effect an engineering solution than the actual building that is there. And so these are discussions that the ministry is actively having, and very shortly some announcements will be made by the Prime Minister. These are matters that are actively being discussed by the cabinet. Even simple things like recently we convened a meeting with the Master Builders Association, members of academia and other persons from the engineering societies and so. And what we are learning is that even nails are not really being recommended for the roofs. We're thinking about screws, things like those, and even the thickness in terms of the concrete. So very shortly we'll have those. I know the building codes are there, but I think too that it is perhaps, and this is my opinion now, some need for more enforcement, greater levels of enforcement, and also I think there's a need for sensitization of persons. When we educate persons about how structure should be built, and sometimes it is really just coming down to what they can afford. But we're thinking now in a more long-term way. It's not just putting up people in shelters, it's really providing shelters that can withstand the weather events that we are seeing, that they are now becoming more frequent and more intense. So I'm taking notes, members, your feedback is not lost on me for further discussion. So thank you so much.
There was somebody.
In terms of different ministries and agencies are interacting with state constituency at the same time. In terms of dividing that work.
There was, if you read the report of the PAAC last year post-burial, that was one of two recommendations they made. Ministry of Labor, I think, is the main culprit there, MLSS. They do an assessment, they share their information with nobody. So you don't know if they have helped somebody who you then put back on your list to go to, and they claim it's data privacy. I can't understand, it's all government, so, but somehow one ministry seems to be siloed, one agency seems to be siloed rather than it being government, and there's data privacy. I read the report of last year's post-burial similar exercise, and that was one of the two recommendations, that there has to be a way to share information across, whether it be what the members of parliament are identifying, what the housing ministry is identifying, what the labor ministry is identifying. It just seems we're all operating in our silos without the benefit of the data from each other.
Take that on board.
But there are other persons who have their mic on, and if they turn it off, then they will lose their space in the line.
So
I'm trying to turn on your mic, but I don't want. Okay, go ahead now.
I was saying there are some things that can help other members of parliament, but your point is well taken, Chair. When the Minister of Labour and Social Security came, by then I'd already visited each home that was affected or got information that they would still need to verify for particularly one community that was cut off. And we said to them, when you've completed that process, could you please share the information back with us so we know if you have identified other homes? And to date, they have not shared anything, even though they were so happy to accept all the data that we had gathered. So it is something, PS, that it would be good if you take that up at PS meeting with the permanent secretaries for the other ministries, because it doesn't make sense, especially for constituencies like in St. James, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, where the devastation is so vast that we are not taking the benefit of the information or the data gathered by the various ministries and agencies and pooling it together.
If I may, Chair, if I may respond to that comment. We're not perfect as a government, and I'm happy that my PS counterparts are here from the Ministry of Labour as well as from local government. And I hear the comments and I read the report that you mentioned from the Auditor General. Since then, the truth is that we have met and we are looking to see, because we recognize that we can't do it all. No one ministry can do it all, and government can no longer operate in silos. And so my PS counterparts, they are here, and they would have known the discussions that we would have had in terms of sharing information on the beneficiaries and the whole idea of not double dipping, but we are saying that at least, we're not saying you can't get a benefit from Labour and get one from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. But we are saying that when that data is available to all of us, we'll be able to make decisions. In terms of giving someone, it might be giving someone who has got no benefit at all than someone who has benefited 5-6 times. So that collaboration has started. It is not perfect, but indeed it is a work in progress. And my PS counterparts, they are here. We'll see how we will accelerate that.
All right, Ms. Birchall.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hunter, you said that in this phase, we're really focusing on giving people access, whether 1 or 2 lanes. But relocation is something that I think we have to think about for some of our communities, that still, even with the 1 lane or the 2 lane, it's added hours upon our commute. And also the taxi fares have increased, quadrupled in most cases, from $250 in most of my communities to as much as $1,000. So Melissa has brought a lot of terror, but some lessons as well and some opportunities. Would a relocation of the Springmount Road, for example, in East Central St. James, which is the main thoroughfare for us from Montego Bay into deeper South St. James, be something that we accelerate, front load now. Also the conversation of making that passage from Trelawney into Magotty that comes through St. James, could that also be looked at urgently before people start to make their own little route, and then the bigger picture is missed, and the blessing, if I dare say so, from Hurricane Melissa of recreating this new path be accelerated. I wanted to say to you, PS, that perhaps we ought to look at the disaster zones separately and differently than how we treat with the other constituencies. And I say that to say, an MP like myself, every day I'm out there trying to beg food for constituencies. For constituents. I'm not yet at the stage where I can dedicate my mind physically or my thoughts to saying, how do I go find 100 special people to give this housing benefit to, and then to myself go there and geotag and walk the communities and find these houses. Perhaps your ministry can't employ or give stipends to every constituency, but a constituency that's dealing with a disaster at the scale of which South St. James, East Westmoreland, etc., are dealing with and treating with, perhaps the ministry could take on the administrative workload from us. And I do see it. I hear, rather, that there are representatives from the MLSS, from SDC, and wherever else, and maybe from MP's office, who are in the space collecting data, and it's causing quite a problem. Because when I say I'm not aware of who is collecting data, because they say, oh, they're only collecting data from a certain set of people versus that. I don't know, because there's no communication from the ministry to say, we have trained 2 persons and they're going into these communities to collect data. So I'm then going to be stretching myself to collect this data when you're already collecting it. So the overlap, I get the point of the overlap, but it's even more entrenched, a more difficult problem in the disaster zones that you have to treat separately than how you treat. I mean, I heard Member Holness said that within a week or so, I'm paraphrasing, she was able to get to her people and get the data out. They were able to access it, Down there, it's night and day, as she's saying, for us to go in to get the data. So when I heard Miss Monique Gibbs, yes, our data person said that the assessment is 190,000 or so buildings that have been destroyed. In our case, in South St. James, a house, when you look on Google Earth, I could tell you my house was here, but it's no longer there because I didn't really have no foundation. You understand? So when the wind come, the tornado come, it split up the house, as the man said to me. Not split up the house. It split up the house. Because when I say, can you go find some piece of wood, find some plyboard and zinc, he said, I don't know where to start because everything split up. Right? So going to geotag a location and saying the house was here and then it's an empty spot may seem as if I'm fluffing the data, but it is our reality. And your data, your radar won't capture that a house once stood here. Because a house may have been just a little square, but it was my house and it no longer exists. So this 190K data, I know you say it's about 80% or so accurate. I want us to treat the disaster constituencies differently. Let's not rely on technology only. Let's fold in from now, the people who go in the field, collect the data and see that in one community, I've lost 100 houses. So for me to choose this $10 million that has been allocated, for me to find 100 people, it's one person per community. If you understand what I'm saying. So this opportunity that we have to treat with deep rurals and disaster constituencies differently than we treat with the other constituencies, even understanding that they have their own issues. But we need administrative support from the MLSS. We need the coordination. We need the information to know when you're operating in our spaces so that we can then not duplicate the effort. And we need, Sir Hunter, we need our roads to move from just drivable or passable to being thought out as giving us rehabilitated, fully developed roads. We deserve it now. For time come now, forget some proper roads into deep rural constituencies like South St. James, and Melissa is opening that for us. Thank you.
Just to add to that question about the data, can that satellite radar images, which are 88% accurate, that's much more data than we have now. Could that be shared with the members of parliament? Go ahead. I'm trying. Go ahead.
So we can create the data in a way that's ingestible by the by the members of parliament. So we can give you a listing of the type of damage of the buildings in your constituencies and share it either by a digital map or an application on your phone, whatever is best for you, or a printed map, whatever is best for you. We can share that data. We can create it in a format that you can easily digest it.
I think that would be appreciated by everybody, even in terms of this particular grant. And everybody is saying it. You know, you have water more than flour. You know, you have 10 times the amount of potential. But if you could see, you know, spatially where the concentrations are, it would better help you figure out how to allocate it so that you don't take care of one community and 10 more are omitted. So it really was more a suggestion or than well, if I were to reformat into a question, it is there going to be any possibility of getting some administrative support and for the whole coordination effort, especially in the hardest hit constituencies, which look almost, in some cases, post-apocalyptic.
Just two more was the question.
Go ahead. Since it's just two more, you Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. So in terms of the data that is available, I want to know, because that would be useful for even in terms of planning for even constituencies that are not as hard hit. But in addition to that, when even I understand the level of devastation in the West, I do. When I go into my constituency though, and someone has no house where their house was, because we did get tropical storm conditions in St. Mary. When somebody has no house where their house was, they don't care if they're in St. Mary or they're in Trelawney or St. James. They want to figure a way out and how they can get back to housing. So when the planning, especially doing radar data, which I imagine satellite imagery, I imagine you can do that across the entire country. I'm trying to understand why that technology stopped in St. Anne based on what you presented and didn't go in. Just one second. Let me just finish the question so that I can give up the microphone. So the second question for you, Mr. Hunter. That $5 billion budget to get back some of the roads to some semblance of readiness. Can you indicate when the work will start? Because again, there are a number of constituencies, and I want to talk about Central, but I can't be parochial. But there are a number of constituencies with roadways that are cut off and culverts that have cavities, deepened cavities. Some of those the Prime Minister has been brought to look at. And, you know, the hurricane has created a more, a greater concern, a much greater concern. Going into Marlborough, for example, you have to be telling vehicles, hey, don't go too much to the left because, you know, you don't know when the road going to compromise and just. So I would love to get an idea of when that work will start. And the final question, because I realize there isn't uniformity in terms of what NWA did on the morning after the election across parishes. So in my parish, I'm just telling you.
After the election?
The day after after Melissa. After Melissa, yes. The day after Melissa. Yes. So after Melissa elected to come to Jamaica. In some parishes, it seems NWA stepped out quickly and started clearing roads, etc. But hearing from some colleagues, it sounded as if. Sorry? So hearing from some colleagues, though, CEO, it sounds as if never acts. In some areas, they were waiting for budget and other instructions. I want to know what should our expectations be across the board, since these are getting more intense in terms of weather events, and we may have one again in the future.
No, I'm just taking a final question for you, and then you will be finished with your ministry. Mr. Williams.
My question is directed at NWA, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Varden, Downer. Mr. Hunter, you said something which I found quite interesting, significant, in respect to drain cleaning, that there are two aspects to it, the drain cleaning itself, but there's the issue of capacity. And I'm going to ask a question, but I'm going to preface it by saying something. The issue of stormwater surface runoff has been a major issue. While I was mayor, it was a big issue for us because, as you know, development's taking place, and if water is not managed, or you don't have measures or programs on site to manage stormwater, then you're going to increase the volume of water entering our drain network. So there's one issue of dealing with capacity, but then the other issue is, so you have drain cleaning capacity, but then the other issue is managing stormwater, I would say, on property. While I was at the municipality, the issue of managing stormwater on residential properties, which the technical persons at the municipality felt was even a bigger issue than managing stormwater. Well, not a bigger issue, let's say that, than managing water on multifamily development, although you have to manage it there also. And so you control the release of stormwater in the environment. That's what's the big issue. So as we speak about drain capacity, we still have to look at the measures. I know you're in a position to voice that, as the head of NAA. We have to look at the issue of stormwater management as we develop. I mean, we're not going to stop development, so we have to address this issue. So as I say that now, but yes, and while we had the rainfall emanating from Melissa, I was observing some drains in Clarendon Central. I'm not being parochial because it's a bigger point. Because I was trying to determine, and I'm trying to get that information now, what's the inches of rainfall that these drains are able to manage? I don't know. I'm just speaking from a layman's perspective now. I mean, so as we look at our drains, we're looking at, okay, these drains are able to handle this volume of rainfall. And so even as we construct drains in the future, then we still have to say, okay, this is what the expectations are, this is the different levels of rainfall that we experience, and this is what the drain capacity ought to be in order to deal with this. I was just looking at that in central Clarendon because we have issues there relating to flooding. All right, so now I'll ask the question, and the question is in relation to the western parishes now. Could we, just asking it, I mean, it's just for food for thought, could we have prepared better in terms of drain cleaning in the western parishes? Or do we have serious drain capacity issues there and across?
I'm being distracted here. So that's the final question. Mr. Hunter?
Okay, so very quickly then, so Mr. Newell's question. As I indicated before, the government is making $5 billion available to the NAA in very short order. So the works are intended to start, shall I say, precipitously, meaning so
imminently.
Soon. And the good thing about how the NAA operates, we don't wait on money to do work.
Good and
so,
bad.
for example, because we have the backing of the Treasury, so when you have roadblocks, the operating protocol is that we go out there and we clear the roads. That is item number 1. Okay. Item number 10 is receipt of the bills and settling the bills. Yeah, but item number 1 is to clear the road. So we are not encumbered by consideration of costs in our immediate response, which is clearing the roads. We do have some consideration regarding reconstruction, but at this stage, reconstruction is a small amount. Now, I would imagine that you'll be interested in what we'll do in your constituency. And perhaps you could just mention that your constituency is the area where I was born and grew. So I do have some sentimental attachment to that area.
You're sharing your autobiography with us, chapter by chapter, as you go along.
But yes, we intend to start those works very soon and before Christmas.
But could you, Mr. Hunter, just ask each of your parish managers or regional managers to communicate with the respective MPs the specific plans for their constituencies?
We certainly will. Member Williams, interesting concepts that you've raised regarding stormwater. Okay, so very quickly, without getting into too much detail, drainage is designed based on what we call return period, meaning this rainfall, when will it occur again? And so historically, we've designed drains for like every 6 years, the return period every 6 years, which means that capacity will be exceeded every 6 years. Now, what climate change is dictating is that drainage should be designed for minimum of a 50-year return, which means that it should be so large that it will only be exceeded once every 50 years. And there are some schools of thought which says you probably need to look at a 100-year storm return. Yeah. So what that means is that the drains will be significantly huge. In the urban areas, when we talk about managing stormwater on premises, and I've read the pieces on it, the issue, and I know there are persons who are developers, when you have a finite amount of land and you have to carve out some for the structure, carve out some for the on-site soaking, and it becomes, an exercise in optimization that I'm not sure, well, I don't know to what extent the government would have to legislate. Many years ago, I went to Singapore, and you're driving around, and there are places that have signed no building, and that is policed by the state. Now, to the extent that we can have such a jurisdiction where individual household, you go and you purchase, and what is happening now is redevelopment, Wellington Drive, people, you buy up these lots, which were single-family lots, and, convert them to multi-family thing. How much of it do you keep for a structure, and how much do you keep for soak-away? I mean, these are very challenging issues. Maypen, we do have a drainage plan for Maypen. It came out of the master drainage study that was done about 12 years ago. And so we have a prescription for the drainage solution for most of the big towns in Jamaica. It's just a question now of implementation and financing and implementation. So what we do, anytime we're doing a new road, like we're doing Mandela, we incorporate the prescription from the master drainage plan in that. And the South Coast, we incorporate that. It's not likely that a government or any government is going to start out and say, well, we're just going to do a drainage plan island-wide. It has to be accompanied by something else. And generally, it's a new road development and so on. So that's how it usually works.
But with this, and Mr. Hunter, before you leave, don't turn off your mic. Before you leave the drainage, the day after the hurricane, I was going through a certain section of Kingston on my way to Manchester. And to my horror, I saw a number of persons dragging tree limbs out of their yards and straight to the gully and dumped it in the gully. I was saying, but if we get another heavy rain tomorrow, it's going to cause flooding again, even though just before the hurricane, we had those gullies cleared. The day after the hurricane, I just watched in horror persons throwing the broken limbs and everything that had debris that had collected in their homes, dragging it out and throwing it into the gully down the road.
My excursion to Norman Manley the Tuesday night, good thing I was accompanied by a platoon of JDF soldiers. But on Michael Manley Boulevard, there was a tree collapse, and the moment we stopped to look, a set of guys came out, wanted me to give them the contract then and there and whatever. So there is an element of peril, particularly in the immediate aftermath where you're not quite sure what is happening. And yes, people do silly things. Thankfully, there was no deleterious effect from that experience. But yes, our gullies, and it is very painful if money is provided and you then have to make a choice between repairing the walls of the gully and the invert of the gully or cleaning out detritus material. It's like a waste of money to spend millions of dollars to take out stuff that people put in. You'd rather use those funds to see to the structural integrity of the gully, but that is where we are.
All right. Thank you, and thank the ministry. Ms. Edwards, was it? How soon you think you can send that information out? By just assume digitally, a digital map, because the Parliament has everybody's email. 2 days?
We will aim for 2 weeks, in 2 weeks' time.
2 weeks? Oh, okay. Please start with South Manchester. All right. Members, we have a little dilemma now. I thank the ministry and the NWA and its agencies. We have, is it 1 or 2 more ministries? Would local government and Ministry of Labor, do you want to just push through so you don't have to come back here next week since you're already all here? And yes, you can leave, Mr. Hunter. Okay. Or would you prefer to come back next week? I'm trying to be sensitive. P.S., I didn't hear what you were saying. Would you're the local government? No. Okay, so could you just come down and sit in the front seat here? Just come and sit right beside us here. And Ministry of Labor, just one person from local government?
The PA?
You have a team with you from local government? Okay. And there's a hand up. No. OPM is here now? Hold on, could you press, speak now, the mic is on.
So Chairman, I've been informed by my permanent secretary that he's currently 5 minutes or so away, depending on the traffic.
But that's what you told me at 2 something.
Well,
the traffic must be really challenging.
No, there was a prior engagement, Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so let's just try and go through quickly local government. And, local government, I don't know, when we looked at what happened last year, I think you had ODPEM then, but you no longer have ODPEM. So I don't know how much you can help us, but take 5 minutes and give us an overview of what the Ministry of Local Government is doing. I know our councillors and local councils would have a particular interest in what's going on through them. So I know they'll be listening keenly. So the format we've been using is just take 5 to 10 minutes, give us an overview of your interventions and what you have planned, and then we open for questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. Also to the members who are remaining. My name is Marcia Henry Martin, Permanent Secretary, Local Government, and I'm supported this afternoon by Mr. Dwight Wilson, Senior Director, Technical Services, and Mr. Patrick Watson, Senior Director, Hazard Mitigation and Risk Management. So we were given 5 questions to respond to. The first asked how many parish council roads or municipal facilities in each parish were damaged. And I must say, Chairman, our submission came maybe late in the day, because I'll confess we had an oversight on the fact that we were required to appear today, and so we did our best to make a submission. So I'm not sure how many persons have seen it. So generally, our municipal buildings, offices were all impacted, particularly for those, well, in all the parishes that were affected by Hurricane Melissa.
Just to update you, it did come late, so we weren't able to print it, but it's been emailed to the members.
Okay,
so they
great.
should have it on their phones or laptops.
Thank you so much, sir. So all the administrative offices were affected, in particular Black River and Trelawney, and you might have seen some videos of what happened in Montego Bay. The infirmaries also were significantly impacted, again, particularly in Trelawney and Santa Cruz. Our markets, transportation centers, and our fire stations, and you would be aware that the Jamaica Fire Brigade is one of our key first responders, and so that would have affected their ability to respond during the event. I must also indicate that prior to the notice to appear, would have asked the local authorities to do a detailed submission on the impact on the infrastructure locally, based on the fact that so many of the facilities would have been affected. That is due for Friday. As a matter of fact, we do have a meeting planned for Friday to include our mayors, CEOs, chief executive officers, as well as our chief engineering officers. You also asked about the number of houses that suffered slight, significant, or complete destruction in each parish, and I wondered why this one was posed to us. However,
yes, as I said, when I think the questions were formulated, we thought ODPEM was still in Ministry of Local Government.
Right, but we do still have a collaborative approach, and you would have heard the previous presentation.
Right, so we got it from housing, so you don't have to.
Thank you so much. My figures are a little different though, based on the assessments and the fact that there is a margin of error. So this figure is what we got from ODPEM.
Okay.
Based on their interaction with National Spatial Data, with the young lady you spoke to just before.
Sorry?
So Meg Jada indicated 191 based on the radar assessment with an 88% likely
reliability,
accuracy. And what I have in my report is approximately 156 with 24,000 totally destroyed. Correct. So
right.
in that figure, it was buildings. This is
structures,
housing.
buildings.
Right.
This is specifically housing.
It's buildings, and she did say that there would have to be some more detailed verification to determine what is businesses, etc.
No, the 156,000 from this ministry, they're giving just housing.
Just housing.
And they're saying 156,000.
Yes.
So there's not necessarily any inconsistency. Because
Thank you,
there
Chairman.
could be 40,000 or 30
Yes.
something thousand of shops and
Yes.
other structures.
So it's just an estimate based on the radar assessment, because you asked specifically for housing. Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I am confused because I heard another figure of 90,000 families. So 90,000 families and 156,000 houses. No.
It must be more than 90,000 families.
No, well, that was what was published through the, I think it was Prime Minister's office, but it was in a newspaper, 90,000 families.
Well, I guess it's ongoing data collection. So as the field officers are out there more and more, they would collect more data.
Yes, I was about to say, sir, perhaps it's dependent on the date or the time of collection or announcement of the information. 17, how many persons in each parish have the ministry provided with relief assistance? What was the nature of the assistance, and what is the estimate of the actual expenditure in each parish? As I said, the response is also ongoing, but relief assistance within parishes is usually executed collectively, and that is what we continue to practice with the ODPEM and the MLSS. And you would be aware that local authorities usually receive relief supplies from the OPM, which are then distributed locally. Because of the time frame, we would not have had the specific details of the families and or individuals who have already received from our local authorities. And of course, you spoke to the whole issue of our local representatives. The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service would have supported the ministry with a $250,000 allocation per division, which those submissions were invited. You can imagine we are very careful to make sure we meet the standards. To date, only 2 local authorities have made their submissions, Clarendon and Manchester.
This was the one that was done up front when the MPs were getting an allocation and the councillors got an allocation for sort of immediate mitigation, food packages, that sort of thing.
Correct, sir.
So I can't let you get away with that because are the councillors asked to find a store to advance the goods and then they claim back for it? And I asked that very specifically because I'm told they were asked to do that last year and after burial, and that there's some councils still have not been reimbursed for it. Is that the process?
I could not speak to the after burial situation that you're mentioning, but what I can tell you, all submissions, pre-burial, post-burial, or any time during any response, so long as the submissions are made based on the requirements set out, those payments are done.
Well, maybe I'm not understanding. Your answer says to date, two local
authorities have made submissions
for payments to be made.
Yes, Clarendon and Manchester. No, what they were asked to do was to provide a list of beneficiaries by divisions.
So they collect the beneficiaries first and then submit
yes, and the copies.
After they've done that,
yes.
Okay.
And we're not paying to the beneficiaries. The payments are to an establishment or a company.
So like a supermarket, for example, and the beneficiaries would go there and collect a food package from
that. The local representative would, based on the names collected, would, whatever process they choose for their constituents to benefit. Right. All we're asking is for the relevant invoices and so on to be submitted.
Okay.
But that has been going slowly. On the 18th question, which would be the fourth for us, what steps are being taken by the ministry in implementing in conjunction with MLSS to avoid duplication? So as you rightfully raised, it has been a consistent observation and we have sought to improve as indicated by P.S. Williams previously also. We have met the 3 ministries. We have a collaborative approach. Our local authorities representatives and our SDC representatives are part of the humanitarian response on the ground. We use one single form, and if there's any assistance given outside of the form, we ask that those be reported. Those go back to MLSS for a single database. So MLSS will speak more about that, Mrs. Jennings, when she speaks. Because we did have a meeting very Melissa in anticipation of doing it better. And they do have a project that she can speak more about as to how we're approaching it. On the 19th question, which would be the 5th for us and last, what mitigation measures and their costs did the ministry implement in each parish prior to the passage of Hurricane Melissa? Local authorities routinely do mitigation activities, as you are aware, through the allocation of the monthly parochial revenue fund. For June and July specifically, we had advised local authorities to use those allocations for mitigation measures, and that totaled just under $1 billion, with $991 million allocated over the 2 months to all local authorities, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Newell?
Thank you, Chairman. So this question wasn't, what I'm about to ask wasn't covered in the question submitted, but it has become a major issue, I think, across constituencies. Solid waste management and collection coming out of, as you would understand, people staying at home for days at a time, riding out the storm and the after effects, would have accumulated significant solid waste. I want to know whether the ministry, its agency, has a program to deal with the excess solid waste that would have come out of weeks after Hurricane Melissa. And I ask because in a number of colleagues, and that's my reality in my constituency as well, where garbage strewn on the sides of roads. Yesterday there was a protest, including dead animals, and
including
I want to know
household material, mattresses, soaked, mold growing under.
So your routine program of collection, which was not very effective in where I represent, isn't enough to deal with this excess situation. So I want to know what the plans are to deal with the garbage accumulated post.
Okay, thank you for that question. As you are aware, the National Solid Waste Management Authority is very strident in delivering excellent service, and I really want to thank the officers who continue to serve even in the most rural
I don't
places.
think we agree with
no,
that
I have to commend them first, Chairman. I live in a rural parish. I live in a rural parish, so pardon me? Yes, my garbage is collected.
Yeah, I don't think your experience is representative.
No, I'm not disputing that there aren't challenges. I am just, because it's a difficult time, and you will appreciate, even in our local authorities, the very persons who are responding have been affected. So I would not want to just...
Okay, I appreciate that.
So I really want to highlight that they have been serving, so we recognize the challenges. I must say, yes, it has been recognized, and as we speak, the program is being finalized. We took a cabinet submission last week. I believe when we appear next week, because the ED is not here, today, so we were asked to appear next week as well for infrastructure, and I am sure more details will be said about that, not just by him, but also by the minister and the PM, based on the level of attention that it is receiving.
Just to follow up, Chairman, because this would, and I'm also sympathetic to everybody affected, including myself, by the hurricane. But it's 3 weeks and a day. I think it is unacceptable that a plan is being finalized at this late stage when we have a hurricane season that comes at a set time each year. I would expect there would be some plan where solid waste is concerned that just comes into effect after a weather system. Now, if the response was that a category 5 generated so much challenges that the plan wasn't able to reach it, that's a different thing. But we have seen no evidence of any real serious effort in my constituency. And to hear now that a plan is being finalized is not, it doesn't sit well.
It's disheartening.
Chairman and member, perhaps I should backtrack a bit, because I was trying to respond specifically to the excess that you spoke about. So you will agree that the excess would be more prevalent in a St. Elizabeth or a St. James. So you're speaking specifically to a St. Mary, right?
No, I'm speaking generally.
No, you did say in your area. So the point I'm making, even before Melissa struck, that the NSWMA would have pre-positioned itself for the areas that were projected to be significantly impacted. However, having had a category 5 or perhaps higher that we have never seen before, of course it's going to cause you to re-strategize.
Mr. Hines?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask if the goodly Ministry of Labour,
Local government,
would agree that there wasn't sufficient mitigating preparation for the hurricane as it relates to supporting their councillors and mayors throughout the different municipalities across the country.
No, I would not agree with that, sir.
What additional support did the councillors and mayors got outside of the 250,000 mentioned to deal with drain cleaning and other assistance to the shelters that were provided as places for our citizens to retreat in the hurricane?
There was a 991 million mentioned that was spent in June and July, or released
Only.
in June and
In June and
those 2
July
months.
only.
So that was one thing, but other than that, I think essentially by the time October came, those monies had long been spent.
But it's a monthly allocation, sir.
So
No, each local authority, if you understand the system sufficiently, and it's not to imply that you don't, but
No,
each,
I don't. So you
each
gave us
local
991 for June and July.
yes,
So why didn't give us the figure for August and September?
because of how the question was coined. So the question asked about prior to Melissa.
Right.
Okay.
So September was prior to Melissa.
If you just allow me, sir. So for June and July, so I did preface the response for June and July to say that routinely a monthly allocation is done for mitigation measures. That is up to the mayors and his councillors. It's not for me to sit here in this parliament to say how a mayor and his council decide how they are going to do that. But I'm saying to you, the ministry, based on the requirements, would have made the monthly allocations as is required. However, as also was explained by the NWA, routinely, when it comes to the hurricane season, Mr. Wilson can explain more with that, we usually recommend that instead of doing other activities with your allocation, you use it specifically for mitigation measures.
So even though we may not have asked it ahead of time, what was the allocation for September?
I'm sorry, I did not, I don't have
the
that
same
today.
991 million.
991 million is specific for June and July because it was specifically indicated to them
Right,
to
so I'm
do
asking
that.
now, even though it wasn't specifically indicated.
For September,
You have
but
a-
I don't have, I
you don't
could get
have
that
that
figure
You
for
can
you
send that to
though.
us.
I don't have it today.
Okay. Mr. Crawford?
Yes, Chairman. If
Could you speak into the mic?
Yes, yeah. Yes, Chairman. What call the places where you stay? Shelters. The constant story around shelters have caused for persons to resist more than to attend upon these shelters. Is there a plan, especially expecting more frequent disasters such as these hurricanes in particular, for an improvement in shelters and in the facilities and facilitation that is made at these centers? Secondly, is there a probability for shelters to be outfitted with food prior to the first person getting to the shelter? Oftentimes, this negates transportation to the center, though it is said that it is local in the parish. There are many places far away from the space of location that has caused for persons to have gone unfed in the shelter. Thirdly, is there an audit of shelter applicability? Many schools with fancy blocks and stuff like that have been selected as shelters, causing for the occupants to have been wet throughout the period of time. So is there a audit of these shelters and a decision on how applicable they are for continuation of as a shelter? Another question is, as far as it relates to volunteerism for shelter management, this has caused for many to be unavailable at the time or uncommitted in some cases to the task. Is there any consideration for payment or a system like a national reserve or something, consistent training for persons who are volunteer shelter managers? Finally, as far as it relates to schools, we have situations now where the school can't be open because it is continuing as a shelter. I can speak to a school in Luidas Vale that we have to be trying to find a location for the person so that the two people that were left. Are we planning to continue with schools as the main or one of the main, or are we considering moving into community centers designed to serve as shelters if needed?
Used by financial institutions for large savers where you avoid having the tax deducted at source. Some people may pay it late, which still gives them the use of the money for a year, which now is very valuable. Of course. Some may not pay it at all. Now, we have known of that. It's known to the previous administration. It's known to the present administration. It's known to the central bank. It's known to the income tax department. How can we, while not doing that, still take 33 1/3 cents in the dollar, and it's more than that when you add in the other things, almost 40 cents in the dollar from somebody after they've received $275 for the week. I mean, it's $273 to be exact. So if someone gets $300 for the week, you're going to deduct out of that last $25 a third. Yet I just can't understand.
While many people who have income get away. I mean,
you could have $1 million on a promissory note or a debenture at a merchant bank, and get your you'll get your, well, if it's 50%, get your $500,000 interest and have no tax deducted. So that if you have $500 in a passport savings account at the bank at the halfway tree, and you get your, I don't know what, 20% interest on that, out of your $100, they'll take 33.
Wouldn't you agree generally, John, that the society has been skewed more for the rich and the powerful, and that the poor have really been badly neglected? As a matter of course, by all governments.
I would say
we have a strong class system in Jamaica.
The government authorities or people in authority need to, it's not just a matter of protect the weak or the poorer. You have to organize the society so that they can have the opportunity to rise up from this and no longer be weak and poor. We're perpetuating our poor and disadvantage. And it's our own fault as a people. We haven't demanded the type of change necessary. We tend to deal with emergencies. We tend to deal with crises rather than, we know there's injustice in the tax collection system. We know the GCT is not being collected widely throughout the island because of the number of people who are registered, yet all prices reflect it, even if it's not added in.
Of course.
Prices rose to accommodate it. That's just, that's just two examples. But there's so many other areas. Yet there isn't, and it's recognized. We need an urgency. The people have to make their voice heard that this is a priority.
Okay. And that something needs to be done.
Needs to with urgency.
Okay. We'll take another break. Welcome back to Profile. We're talking to John Issa. John, what was your vision as a teenager? You grew up in a very, very powerful family in Jamaica. How did that make you feel? How did that affect your psychology?
Well,
to grow up as a privileged child.
Well, it was very comfortable. Went to St. George's, Campion Hall, then St. George's. I always knew that I'd be going to Holy Cross afterwards.
Catholic.
I grew up in a house, where my parents were very concerned for the needy. My father was president of the St. Vincent de Paul Society was one of his, something very close to his heart for, I don't know, he was president for 20 years or more than 20 years, and was always
concerned
assisting with the poor and assisting the nuns at at Alpha, which was across the road from our house, and he was involved in building Osenham Home for the Aged.
Oh, your father was?
Vincent de Paul Society. That was, his project. Among many others, he was involved in Boys Town. So I grew up in a house where there was concern for the less fortunate.
Yes.
Those are the things that just come to my mind immediately. There were many other things he was involved in.
So you had an appreciation for the poor from very early. You had a sensitivity to the
Well,
poor.
at St. George's, the students at St. George's came from all classes. I mean, St. George's wasn't the sort of JC
Elitist
crowd or the Monroe crowd. You had a mix of students from all income brackets, from all who lived in all areas. And, you're taught, the Christian ethic taught by the Jesuits then, taught you that you had an obligation to use the talents you were given to the maximum and to assist those in need. So it sort of, it sticks. But I mean, from a practical point of view, I mean, will somebody able to really enjoy the good life in Jamaica if you are surrounded by large numbers of hungry and desperate people? I mean, so even if you want to look at it, someone isn't Christian, you want to look at it from a materialistic, enlightened self-interest. Just the creation of the security guard business is just symptomatic of what has happened.
You would like to live without security guards and without all of
that's
these
the way
burglar bars.
We used to live. And so there's no reason why we must assume it must be necessary forever.
And you went abroad and you did a first degree, actually.
Yes, I got a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration, majoring in marketing. But Holy Cross College, where I went, was a liberal arts college, so I have more philosophy credits than business credits.
Philosophy.
And we had to take history and languages and literature.
Broad-based education.
Well, if someone can afford the luxury of a liberal arts first degree,
that's the best.
I recommend it highly. If you don't have that good fortune and you need to start studying your profession or trade early, I still recommend people to study history, because you cannot understand what is going on in the present if you haven't studied the past.
Have your children followed you into business?
Yes, they all work with me, even though, because of my sort of not realizing one had choices, I stress to my children that they must choose which university they want to go to. If they wanted to go into a profession or work on their own, let me know. I will assist and help. They all ended up going to the same university I went to. And then they all are working in the business with me. So maybe I use reverse psychology on them without realizing it.
What importance does ethnicity play? You're of Arab descent. How does this ethnicity affect your perception?
I don't know if that really did. It's probably more the Christian influence. My
Catholic
wife
influence.
was born in the Middle East.
Your wife was born there.
She comes from Jordan. There's a great sense of family, which has an effect. Where you're always supportive. She's always very supportive of my work.
How do you meet your wife? In the West?
No, I met her over there. I was in Japan. My father had retired and he was on a trip in the Middle East.
Yes.
He heard I was in Japan on business and said I must return home that way. So I'd never been to the Middle East, and introduced me to old relatives and so on. And at that time I met her. And
in Jordan?
In Jordan. Spent 4 days there, came back to Jamaica, went back in a month, and a month after that we were married.
Oh, you're married? That's a whirlwind romance.
Yes, yeah.
And how long has that lasted now?
27 years.
27 years, we have done well.
Maybe if you spend too much time before, you don't spend much time after. I don't know if there's a relationship.
Yes. John, what has been your overriding philosophy? I mean, you, unlike many others who have wealth today, you grew up in wealth, so that the obsession, what is called wealth addiction, you perhaps don't have that. What drives you today to achieve?
Well, I must say it's nice to have more than you need, so you don't have to